Well, good morning everybody and welcome back to another film. So obviously an office-based film today. Many of you will know if you follow the channel that I've had some quite niggling hernia problems over the last 12 months and in the last 3 months I've had 2 operations. Just getting over that operation now, but really chomping at the bit to get out with the camera. In fact, in the last 10 minutes I've just been taking some test shots for this video handheld and it felt really good to be back behind the camera, so can't wait to get out again anytime soon. So this video is all about once I get my images back and they're in the camera, how I get them onto the computer, how I deal with them and how I put them into an order where I can file them safely for future use. It's not a video that covers processing, that's an entirely different beast in itself. This is just taking you through that process of getting them from camera into a filing system that I find really quite useful, and I know where everything is whenever I want to get to it. So if you've not already got one, get yourself a coffee. No self-respecting photographer would do anything without a brew of some sort at the ready when you're doing this sort of thing. So let's jump straight onto the computer now and I'll show you exactly how I do all this. So as you can see just here, we've got a file open and it's my Lightroom file where everything photographic goes into this folder. It's not specifically a Lightroom folder linked to Lightroom, it's just literally a file within my file system. I've created it myself and just titled it Lightroom. I could have titled it Photographs, in fact that probably would have made more sense, but I titled it Lightroom, so here we are. You can see at the top that I've got Simon's new RAWs, and what that refers to is anything straight from the camera, RAW files, goes straight into that folder. I don't take RAWs and JPEGs simultaneously, I only shoot RAW files. I've no reason to shoot JPEGs at all. So like I say, I get my RAW files from the camera and I literally put the card in the back of the PC and that opens a folder, and I just drag and drop the files straight into this new RAW folder. And as you can see, we've got several images that I've taken this morning already in there, so I've done that already. I'll just quickly show you the other file structure that I have. So here we've got Simon's RAW library. I'll just maximize this, then you can see it all. So here we've got Simon's RAW library, and within here we've got the various categories: abstracts, animals, birds, buildings, environmental, European, fungi, insects, landscapes, mountains, others, people, plants, travel and water. That basically covers everything that I shoot today and everything that I've shot in previous years gone by. So this folder is essentially where my RAW files end up once I've titled them and finished with them in Photoshop. It's one of the latter processes that I do. The folder below is Simon's TIFF library, and here is an exact replica of the folders that are in the RAW library. So all my RAWs go into the RAW library and all my TIFFs go into the TIFF library, and they're all separated into these categories that you see here. We're going to ignore the stuff before Simon's transparencies, that's showing my age. There are all the images from when I used to take slide film, and video files is a folder that I don't really use anymore. It's just still there. So that's basically, in a nutshell, is my image filing system broken down in a very simple form and easy to follow. So let's jump into Lightroom and let's go to the folder on the top left there, Simon's new RAWs, which we know there's photographs in, and I just click the import button, and then I need to locate that folder, Lightroom, Simon's new RAWs, and they're the images that I've taken this morning. Now just trust me, these are by no means fantastic images. They're just for illustrative purposes. One or two I thought were looking quite nice, but I spent too much time on them. It was just for this video. So I make sure that at the top it says my catalogue, so I know that these images are going to import into the same folder as the source folder. Now I do have occasionally, I don't really use it that often anymore, I have this panel set up to apply during import to give my personal information like my website and my email address, telephone number, things like that, just for copyright purposes, but you don't need to do that. So I click the import button and that will bring those files into that folder. So there they go. I'll just click on the new RAWs folder on the left. So I'm not into recent downloads, I'm actually into the folder itself. So the next process, I'll just clear that, Netflix bugging me. So the next process is to go through these images individually, and I'm really hard edit at this point down to the ones I want to keep. And you remember in the previous video that I give stars to my images, and I generally keep anything above a 3-star. Anything else just gets rejected straight away, and often I will just keep the very best one in a sequence. So we'll go into the develop module. You could have done this in library, and it's just to bring the images up full size. And then what I do is I just go along the bottom with the keyboard, just scrolling along the right, looking for the one that that pleases me the most, or several, whichever it turns out to be. So I quite like that one. I thought that at the time of shooting, that I quite like the arrangement of that one. So let's say we're going to keep this one here. I go back into library. We'll just flag it, and then what I generally do, being ruthless, is that I select all the others and delete from disk, leaving just the one. That's how hard I edit. I don't have thousands and thousands and thousands of images within my library. I just have the ones that I'm probably going to use in the future, or ones that I think have got potential in the future. So I'm not going to edit this. I'll just do some very basic adjustments. Let's hold the Alt key down and we'll just adjust the blacks. So the minute all that yellow goes away, that means the blacks are set, and same for the whites. Very little whites in this image, so just get rid of the greens. I'm actually going to take that down quite significantly. Actually, it doesn't look right. Just looking at the histogram at the top, I think round about there should do it, quite like that. And I'd do some other minor adjustments, but let's say that that's finished with now. So my next stage is to go back into the library, and I want to give this image a file number. I don't rely on the PEF numbers at the bottom there. I have numbers. All my files are in sequence numbers in sequential order. So what I do here, this is going to be within my plants category. So I go to the raw files and I look for plants, and I go to see which was the last number that I had. So here at the bottom, this number is 888. Now the reason I go into raw files is because if I've selected a few plant subjects to keep as raw files, I might not keep the entire number as TIFF files. So the TIFF files are not in sequential order. You might have gaps because I might have kept 5 of the raw files, but I might have only kept processed 2 of the TIFFs. So I make sure that I only look at the raw files when I'm trying to get numbers. So plants, the last one was, as we can see down here, was 888. So I go back into the new RAWs, make sure it's selected, and go to library and rename photos. Now here on the custom text, I call mine S Booth, and then it always starts with a D for digital, and the PL is just basically plants. It might say LA for landscapes, AB for abstracts, and then what I do, change that number to 889 because that's going to be the next one in the sequence, and that would work if there was another 10 pictures here. It would just give them all that number. Just make sure that when I'm doing this, I'm only selecting the plants. I might have landscapes in with the file, so I only select the ones that are plants, and then I click OK. And if you look at the bottom, we've now got 889. So what I do next, once that's done, is that I work on this image as we've seen in the develop module, I will maybe continue to work on it, and the bit that I did before, the blacks and the whites, I probably would have done at this stage, to be fair. Got rid of any spots, things like that. And then once that's done, it's time to produce my master file, which is the TIFF file. Some people use PSDs. I sometimes interchange. I use PSDs if there's lots of layers, but generally speaking, if I finish the image, I will save it as a TIFF file. So from here, I go to Photo, Edit, Edit in Photoshop 2022. I always go through this process. I don't export my TIFF straight from Lightroom. I go to Photoshop first and just make sure there's nothing else that I want to do to the image. And there usually is a little bit of something that I don't like doing in Lightroom, such as luminosity masks as a good example. So once that image is finished, I then save that image and I go to the TIFF folder, and that comes up. So here I navigate to, in Lightroom, the TIFFs, that's the TIFF library, and then I look for the plants, and then I will save that in there. Now I don't sharpen it or anything at this stage. That is now my master file, and that master file will be opened whenever I need to create new versions of that file, such as images for the YouTube channel, images for print. I always use the base master with no sharpening applied, and I will apply the sharpening to the images once they've been made copies of, ready for the future purpose. So they just sit in that folder for as long as is needed until somebody requests one or for another purpose. So I can close that now, and I go back to Lightroom, and here's the image, the raw image, and then I basically go to File and Export, and here we get this new export dialog box. Now this is the raw file, so the one thing I need to remember is that image format is on original, so it doesn't change it, and it doesn't alter any of this below the image size or anything like that. It just basically takes this image and puts it in the raw catalogue. So here at the top we got the folder that I need to go to. Just navigate to that. It's my folder. Here we go. It's the raw library there. We're taking it from here, Simon's New Raws, into this raw library, and there's my plants folder, and then choose that and then click export, and that's that one done. Now what I do before I get rid of it out of this temporary folder is I will just go down to the plants, and there it is already, just as my backup raw file with no work, nothing applied to it other than the basic adjustments. So I go back into the develop module, I go back into the library and back to the new raws folder, and I just basically delete that from the disk. And there we have, I've got two versions of that file. I've got the raw file in its raw state, and I've got the TIFF file finished and ready to go for customer use or for YouTube use, whichever. Just before I leave that, what I will say is that make sure Lightroom is set up for your export. And to do this, you go to Lightroom Classic at the top, Preferences, and here under External Editing, not in the general, not presets, External Editing, the file formats, it's just this top part that you need to pay attention to. Here, I always by default have that set to TIFFs, Pro Photo RGB. You could go to Adobe 1998, but I believe Pro Photo RGB is actually better. Always 16-bit component. You definitely don't want 8-bit. Resolution, by default Lightroom will pick 240. I changed that to 300. It's the resolution I've always worked in. And compression, absolutely none. And that is basically it. So there we have a brief overview of my file structure. You might want to go back and just pause it and look at those individual bits in more detail. I sort of whizzed through it there, but to be honest, it's not that complicated. It's just a case of getting them from camera to a filing system where I've got a raw, untouched raw file which is also good for if you enter competitions, because often they ask for that raw file. And I've also got a TIFF version all ready to go for future use. Now, what I do, once all that's done, once a week, this folder here that you're looking at, where all my Lightroom stuff is actually on an external hard drive. It's not on the computer at all. It's on an external SSD. Once a week, or depending on how often I'm using the folders and adding to them, I will bring in another external hard drive, which I keep out of the house just for safekeeping, and I plug that in and it does an automatic backup of the most recent work, and then I take that back outdoors, so I keep that outside in a safe place, locked up, and my other SSD is just in the cupboard here down below. And that's it. That's the end of my process and how I get through my images. But as you can see, I'm extremely ruthless. I don't have thousands of images to contend with every time I come back. A typical video that you see me do, I'll come back with 3 images, and within that 3 images there might be 30 or 40 files to look through to get it down to those 3. So the reason I'm so ruthless is because I don't want to spend hours and hours trawling through files. So I would rather get it out, rather get it right out in the field, and then I've got very, very little work to do when I get back at the computer. So I hope you found this video useful. If you have, please subscribe, leave some comments below, let me know what you think of today's video, and I will hopefully see you out in the countryside on the next one. So until next time, thank you all so much for watching. Bye for now.